Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And in that world, there are certain words, terms, and phrases that are poorly used or not well understood. It's not that the people using them are dumb or ignorant. Most of the time, they're just using the wrong words to convey a certain idea. And in doing so, they completely misconstrue that idea. But sometimes that's on purpose, and often as a means of serving a larger agenda. Whether it's from a government, a politician, a religious leader, a cult, or some TikTok guru, the agenda is usually the same. Use certain words to manipulate and mislead others. It doesn't matter if that means using the wrong words or completely misunderstanding their meaning. The agenda is always the priority. And of all the words these deceptive fraudsters love to throw around, the word Orwellian gets more action than most. Now, chances are you've heard that term more than once in your lifetime. Even if you've never heard of George Orwell or read any of his books, you probably know on some level what it refers to. It often comes up in political debates, usually associated with policies that require some level of authority or surveillance. Some will say the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA's methods of capturing criminals are Orwellian. Some will say policies related to gun control, vaccination mandates, and public education are Orwellian. Some will even say that the practices of tech companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook are Orwellian. And there's always a nefarious undertone to such claims. It's framed as something bad that'll lead to tyranny, oppression, or authoritarianism. It's also not uncommon to lump claims of Orwellian policies to slippery slope arguments. First it's surveillance cameras, then it's basic public health guidelines, and before you know it, you have mind control chips being shoved into your brain. Yes, it's absurd, but calling something Orwellian is often an important means of framing an agenda. And as someone who has read George Orwell's books, and actually enjoyed them on many levels, I can safely say that most people who use the term Orwellian don't understand Orwell or his work. They also don't appreciate the larger message in terms of what he conveyed through his novels. Whether or not it's on purpose doesn't matter. Because if something truly is Orwellian, it's not something to take lightly. To explain, I'll need to take a moment to highlight some key concepts from Orwell's most famous work, 1984. You see, in the world of 1984, the government isn't just big, intrusive, and tyrannical. It literally controls every aspect of the lives of its citizens. Big Brother, as it's often called, doesn't stop at controlling the state, the laws, and the institutions around them. It seeks to outright control everyone's thoughts, emotions, and knowledge, and even the very structure of their language. This is authoritarianism taken to its utmost extreme. When George Orwell wrote the book, he wasn't trying to predict the future as to what the world would become. He structured the story as a cautionary tale, a deeper insight into just how far tyranny could go. Having seen the rise of the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany in his lifetime, Orwell watched it go pretty far, but he dared to contemplate just how bad it can get. It was a scary thought in his time, and it's just as scary today. That's a big reason why Orwell and his work still matter. It even shows every time sales of 1984 spike in conjunction with some major geopolitical events. And while I understand why that happens, I also think that too is a bit misguided. Orwell's name often comes up when people fear their government being too oppressive, and yes, governments can be very oppressive. Any cursory glance at a history textbook will provide plenty of examples. But what some people call oppressive these days is just not, at least not in any meaningful understanding of the term. Being kicked out of a grocery store for refusing to wear pants is not oppressive. Being kicked out of a restaurant for cussing out the waitstaff is not oppressive. Being fined for not following a simple set of rules within a public area, be it sunbathing nude, listening to heavy metal on max volume, or yelling racial slurs through a bullhorn, that is not oppressive. It doesn't matter how liberal or conservative you are. In a civilized society, we all have certain rules that we must follow. Too few rules will lead to people exploiting others without consequences. Too many will lead to authorities exploiting those without power or recourse. Ultimately, it comes back to finding a balance between individual liberty and the collective good. And typically, it's the collective good where Orwellian rhetoric tends to get obscured. For some people, literally anything that somehow hinders their ability to do what they want to do is considered Orwellian. But that's just absurd. It's akin to calling any guy with long hair a hippie, or anyone who's had more than 2 beers in their lifetime an alcoholic. It paints such a broad brush that it completely obscures context and nuance. And that's just not in keeping with the message of books like 1984. What makes something truly Orwellian has less to do with inconveniencing someone and more to do with manipulating them on a fundamental level. That is an important distinction. Because, and this is where things get a tad political, there are real Orwellian practices going on right now in the world. These things aren't just something Orwell crafted for the sake of his story. They were extensions of what he was witnessing in the real world. As you're watching this video, there are cults and religious sects out there using the same methods as Big Brother. They don't just monitor or preach to their adherents. They use very invasive tactics to shape, mold, and guide their thoughts and feelings, doing everything from ceremonial rituals to serious mental abuse. I certainly won't name names, but more than a few have been referenced and/or parodied by South Park. You can find even more damaging examples among politicians, gurus, and various cults of personality. It's not just that they work crowds up into a frenzy, telling them what they want to hear and making promises they can't keep. They actually condition their followers to reject what opponents, loved ones, and experts say, all in favor of their particular worldview. It doesn't matter if it clashes with the facts. It doesn't even matter if it clashes with objective reality. What matters is that they believe the person without question. That's what Big Brother demanded of everyone in 1984. They're just much more overt about it, demanding that everyone reject what their eyes and thoughts are telling them. And if they tell you to believe that 2 + 2 is 5, it's not enough for you to just tell them you agree. You actually have to agree with it so strongly that you forget you ever believed anything else. That is the essence of truly Orwellian policies. It's not enough to just agree or disagree with someone, and it's not enough to just buy into a particular ideology. It requires that you embrace something so completely that the mere fact of thinking otherwise is literally unthinkable. It's several steps beyond being loyal and stubborn, and even beyond the act of self-delusion. It's hard for someone who hasn't been the target of these practices to appreciate their effects, let alone convince someone that they've been victimized by some Orwellian force. And it certainly doesn't help that the term has been so thoroughly diluted over the years. Because if people associate Orwellian practices with having to wear pants inside a convenience store, then it's just too absurd to take seriously. The problem is that these actual manifestations of Orwellian behavior are often undercut by how many lesser practices get slapped with that label. As a result, people and organizations who use Big Brother's methods will continue to get away with it, because if the term doesn't carry that much weight, then why would it be a big deal? But if you truly valued life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is a big deal. Because like it or not, we live in a world of demagogues, despots, and charlatans. And they're not just after your money or your votes. They want more from you. They want everything from you that you can possibly do for them, and at no cost or inconvenience to them whatsoever. Be they a cult leader, a dictator, or the CEO of an MLM, their endgame is the same as Big Brother's. They want for you what Big Brother wanted for Winston Smith: blind, uncompromising love. That was at the heart of Orwell's message in 1984. It was also at the heart of his anti-authoritarian beliefs. The world may have changed a great deal since he wrote 1984, but the goals of wannabe Big Brothers have not. And even if nobody ever achieved the same tyranny that manifested in 1984, we the people must remain vigilant. Because if there is one glimmer of hope in George Orwell's writing, it was this: human beings are very difficult to control completely. It takes a lot to completely warp someone's thoughts and emotions to fit a certain agenda, and even more to keep them warped. That still won't stop others from trying, which is why it's critical to appreciate what makes something truly Orwellian. Because if we don't, then we're just going to make Big Brother's job a whole lot easier. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.